All right, that's it. Meghan, we are live.
Hello.
Hi. So I've got Meghan here today. Do you prefer Meghan or Meggie?
Meggie.
Meggie. All right. So I've got Meggie here from Make with Meggie. And if you don't know me, my name is Deanne. And I'm from Small But Kind of Mighty. And I'll do a really brief intro to me in a moment. I'm here with Meggie, as I said, from Make with Meggie, and we're going to chat about her work as a crochet designer, the Relax and Hook event that I'm hosting this month, as well as a general chat about crochet as therapy and relaxing crochet projects. Meggie is kindly offering the crochet pattern for her Breezy Days Girls Pullover for free today only. And you can see one of her lovely models wearing that in that picture as part of the Relax and Hook blog hop. So keep watching to find out how to get that free crochet pattern download. This is for anybody who wants to learn to crochet, or they already crochet, or they're interested in how crochet can help manage depression, anxiety, stress, overwhelm, and instead help create feelings of productive calm, help you find your zen. If this applies to you, then if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the notification bell if you don't want to miss a video. If you're watching on Facebook, then do feel free to join the Relax and Hook event and my crochet Facebook group. And whichever comment you're watching on, whichever platform you're watching this video on, please do comment. Even if it's just to say hello, it really helps the content be seen. And I'm especially interested in knowing if you're watching the video live or if you're watching the replay. And I would love to know, I will remind you of this before we finish, what your biggest takeaway was from today's chat. Give the video a like, share it if you found it interesting. As promised, this is a brief introduction to me if you haven't met me before. My name's Deanne. I'm a crocheter. I design things and I teach crochet. I have dealt with both major and chronic depression and anxiety for a couple of decades, and I have ADHD. Both my sons are autistic. I teach therapeutic crochet as part of my program, The Relax Creative, master mindful crochet, and enjoy therapeutic crafting anytime, anywhere, and every day. What a lengthy title is. I just call it The Relax Creative. And Meggie actually really kindly let me interview her as part of the research I did for putting together The Relax Creative. That's how we met. Jen started in my program about 5 months ago, and that's her wearing this rainbow shawl, which she's already made. There's a link in the YouTube description to a blog post where she shared about her experience in the program. I've just got a short quote here. I would tell anyone interested in learning crochet who's struggling to find a constructive mode of self-care and who's looking to belong to a like-minded, empathetic and supportive community to consider the investment in Deanne's program, an investment in yourself. You won't regret it. So Relax and Hook was born out of the Relax Creative program because I was really interested in finding mindful crochet designs for lots of things that the participants in my program could make once they've graduated. So the Relax and Hook event is this month. There's a blog hop component with a free crochet pattern every day and an ebook which contains all the patterns in the blog hop, plus lots of bonus content. And there's links to all of these things in the description box. The feedback so far on Relax and Hook has been really, really positive. So that's made me very, very happy. Yes, the book seems to be doing really well. So it's only available for September. So make sure you grab a copy while you can. And now let's talk about relaxing crochet projects and other things with Meggie. So if you can start maybe by telling us about who you are and what you do.
Right. Well, I'm Meggie. I crochet. I more recently have also started Tunisian crochet and knitting, but I came to the fiber world through crochet first. And I'm finding as I keep exploring further fiber crafts, it just keeps informing my crochet experience and giving me ideas of what I can do and how I can expand. So that has been really exciting. I came to crochet. I tried the first time when, sometime before I had kids. I don't remember exactly when. And I had some limited success, enjoyed it. It was a little bit too challenged, maybe picked the wrong yarn to start with for me, and just set it aside. And then I remembered it while I was pregnant with my first. Took it on a little road trip we went on for a event my husband had to go to for work. Right. And while I had my time alone during the day in the hotel room waiting, I gave it another shot and had some more success. So coming back, trying again was worth it. And then while I was pregnant still, decided I should make a stroller blanket. Gave that a go, and it worked wonderfully, really encouraging. And then I was a little bit busy. So I came back.
Really?
So I came back to it again. I'm not even sure what spurred the thought. Maybe I found the projects I'd set aside. And when my son was about 2, I started again, and with a vengeance. I started in fall, and I made almost everybody Christmas presents by Christmas that year. And I was, no pun intended, hooked by then. It was right. It was working. It was exciting. It was enjoyable. It was my thing in the evening when my son was in bed and my husband was in bed. He starts in the morning, so he goes to bed earlier than I do. And it was something that was mine to look forward to doing in my time.
Right.
When I was the only one awake. And it was just exhilarating to keep trying new projects, new patterns, things I hadn't made, stitches I hadn't done, and just try it out. The worst that happened is I frogged. And I got to do it again, try it again. I learned something and just keep going. I did come to it relatively on my own. I bought a book at Michael's that had some first projects and some instructions in writing and those lovely diagrams, like the line drawing pictures. Yes. I absolutely love those. And that's where I got the foundations from. It was great getting to look at that, to work at my own pace, not knowing somebody to teach me.
Right.
And YouTube never even occurred to me. And so that's where I came to it from, just using that book that I adored. And for those interested, it did have left-handed and right-handed instructions in it. So I did recommend it to a left-handed friend who had great success with it as well. I can't remember the full title. It was one of those little ones that they seem to carry there. And just once it started working for me, I just loved it and kept going.
I know. Well, like once you find the right mix, I think, of time and project and all that sort of stuff, it just becomes addictive, doesn't it? It's just really, it just feels so good.
It does.
You just can't can't stop it. You don't want to stop it.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting, actually. So you had a similar start to me, because I started when my boys were small. I learned from books because I didn't know anybody who crocheted, and this was, way before you started crocheting. So, because I'm a lot older than you are, but it was before left-handed crocheting was even a thing. And my left hand is my dominant hand, but I don't use it to hook with. I just learned right-handed. So
I've heard that a lot, and that's actually, it's interesting you say that. That's something that's actually quite important to me. My dad and his father was left-handed. My dad was left-handed until he got to school, where they made him become right-handed. He had no choice.
God.
And myself, I'm right-handed, but some things like pick up a hockey stick or broom, things like that, it's immediately left-handed. And I've always been fairly comfortable with it. And if there's been a need, like when I had a job scooping ice cream and I hurt my right wrist, it took very little time to be just as comfortable with the left. And once I was healed, whichever hand was closer was just the hand I would use.
Right.
So I find it's not as much work as it seems typical sometimes other people need to put in to be able to learn something with my left.
Right.
And I've played a lot of piano, so I have some experience there. So I'm not left-handed, but like I'm not fully ambidextrous, but I'm in between there. But my son is left-handed as well.
Oh, okay.
And then that friend who I mentioned is left-handed. So and more people I know through her family, right?
Right.
So I feel strongly about people, especially with my dad's experience, being able to do the same thing with their left hand. It's the same skills, it's just different hand. And so I've actually very much tried in my patterns to make a point of, if there would be a difference, like where there's cables, I may not always flip the instructions, but it will look different. And if you don't know that, you're going to think you're doing it wrong.
Right.
So I'm trying to keep in mind, making a note of where, if you follow the instructions, it will work, but keep in mind it will be a mirror image. Or for all my corner to corner, I actually put 2 graphs and 2 sets of written instructions starting from the other side, so that it all lines up. So the right side is always your right side.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so considerate.
It means, there's no reason for it to be harder to access. I mean, I'm sure I'm not perfect at it, so not being left-handed myself. But I try to run everything through my friend that crochets with her left hand. She's been more than helpful, giving feedback and helping me figure some of those things out. And if anybody finds anything that they say, you know what, this isn't quite, or a note here would help someone left-handed, I'd love to hear it, because I'd love to make that change.
Right. And what's the best way of getting hold of you? Is it email?
Yeah, email would probably be, I have links to be able to email me on my site, and I think through all my social platforms as well. I do accept messages through Instagram and Twitter and everywhere else I am as well.
Right.
But most people tend to just click to email. I think you can actually even just fill in the fields to send a message to me through my site as well, if that's easier.
Yeah. So how would you say crochet has positively impacted you personally?
Well, definitely that me time component. As I said, I used to play a lot of piano, and my mom used to joke whenever I couldn't find something, she'd say, have you checked on top of the piano yet? Because that's probably where I put it down when I went to play. And she said she always knew what kind of day I had based on how soon I went to the piano when I came home. And that I did get to bring that piano with me to this house, but just your life patterns, rhythms, routines change. Even just, having a house and a husband was different. Spent my time differently. And then definitely once I had the kids, it was not a lot of time during the day, or I didn't feel like it. It was harder to make the time. And
Right.
then when they were asleep, even if I felt like it, I was worried that
Yeah,
White
you'd
might wake
wake
them
them
up.
up.
It's not a
Yeah,
huge
yeah.
house. And yes, they can get used to it, but it's not necessarily where your mind is. It doesn't feel like it would just be as easy, or I would be as into it. And I didn't realize, I guess, that I was sort of missing what used to be that outlet.
Mm.
And it took me a while of crocheting to realize that that's sort of what I was getting, the same thing, that
Mm-hmm.
chance to sit down, unwind, and be creative and expressive, and all those things I was getting out of the piano. And I've been trying to, the kids are a little older, trying to incorporate more of that. And sometimes it's just, well, too bad, sit down and listen or read a book because I'm playing. But it's not, but I'm definitely not losing crocheting time for that. It's just lovely to have that mix back
Right.
now. I would say, yeah, for me, it was a very big, without even knowing it, to have that production time, use
Mm.
my body, and have something that I'm happy with come from it.
Right. Right. I yeah, I found that it would it was something that I could do anywhere. So I could do it when I was dancing, right? I could do
Mm-hmm.
it when I could throw it in the bottom of the stroller. I could, just basically have it anywhere. It didn't disturb the kids in any way. It wasn't like I had tried knitting, which was a disaster. Um, it wasn't like knitting in the sense that, like, if it once the boys began moving, I didn't stress about them pulling apart my work, because it's just one active stitch, right? Just put a
Yeah.
stitch marker in it and you're fine. So yeah, it was a very baby friendly type activity. And then when I went back to work, I could crochet at work. I could crochet in meetings, and it would just sort of immediately make me feel more grounded, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. What made you want to participate in the Relax and Hook event?
Oh, I guess I hadn't really thought a lot before about how crochet was that. I mean, I knew it was my me time. It really took quite a while for me to realize that connection of how I was getting what I was missing from the music with it. And
Mm,
so sort of realizing that, and a friend who crochets saying how much it helped her, had kind of, I guess, put that in my mind. And I did start noticing that, the nights where I was just too tired, or something came up, didn't have a project ready to go, and didn't get to crochet, that it just, it was still nice time, it's still alone time, downtime, but it wasn't quite the same. It wasn't
mm,
bringing something the same way crochet was. And then,
right,
so, and see, relax and hook, it kind of course, other people would feel that way too, or could feel that way too.
right.
And I admit I do love a challenge in the work I do, often like the crochet and the knitting. I love that, the tackling new skills. For me, that, until it goes wrong, can be relaxing as well. I know it's not that way for everybody, especially depending on your experience, your skill, and your confidence levels. But that, I also really enjoy having a very simple, basic pattern going at the same time. And some nights I just choose to reach for that. Like it might,
Right.
like like a single stitch type blanket even. And it's still nice just to be doing it, even if my mind isn't on it. And then so sort of seeing that, all that kind of connected. And I realized, yeah, you know what? Some of my patterns really do fit that category, where there's a whole lot of it you can just keep working at without having to think too much. And then just a few details that are not difficult, but just break it up. Keep it interesting, keep your attention,
Right.
and make it into something more than, maybe more than simply basics. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I love that too. But the ability to have some mindless time and then still have a, oh, this is a surprisingly, I'm not sure what the word is, not complex. They aren't complex at all, but
Right.
to have a
Challenging.
different result than you would expect maybe for something
Yes.
that was so simple to do.
Right. Right.
And that made them a real joy to create as well. Actually, I've had that thought behind a lot of them, trying to make them approachable for beginners. Even my bib pattern, you don't cut yarn till the end, even
Well, I
though there's
love
2
your bib
straps.
pattern. Oh my gosh, it's so cute.
Thank you. I love that one. I've made that one so many times, and every time I enjoy it, and every time I'm just so, even though it's me, I'm just so tickled by the fact that I can create those straps and not have
Right.
to reattach any yarn. I just love it. So
Right.
I've tried to carry that through, and I think I've mentioned for today's pattern, the sweater, that I only had 2 ends to weave in at the very end.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, that's a good segue. Look at you. You're queuing up my questions here. Tell us about the Foothills hat, which was featured in in Relax and Hook a few days ago, and then today's featured pattern is the Breezy Days Girls Pullover. So yeah, tell us about them and what you like about them and what makes them mindful crochet projects for you.
Well, I did design the pullover first, but since the Foothills hat was featured a few days ago, I'll just start there.
Right.
That one was, my husband works outside all year, so he needs.
Oh.
I know, and we live in Alberta.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't do it. It amazes me, but he needs some very warm gear sometimes,
Right.
but also not too warm because he's one of those people that is part furnace. And once he gets going, like you don't want to sweat outside either, then you're going to get cold.
Right.
And he also has to have very, I guess, fire safe materials for most of his jobs, which usually means treated with fire retardants or natural fibers like cotton and wool that are naturally fire retardant or will just burn away cleanly without melting.
Right.
So he asked specifically for a hat for work. And I thought I could find a pattern, but I'm sure I can come up with something on my own he'd be happy with. And so I just played around with some scrap yarns until I found some kind of stitch pattern I thought was interesting to me. I'm all about texture. I love texture. So I had to like it too, and then show him and say, well, is this kind of what you're thinking? Would this work for you? Does this suit you? So little swatches, we arrived somewhere, and then it had been a DK yarn I'd just been playing with, but I really, really loved the texture, the tightness of that rib and the DK weight yarn and how stretchy it was. And so I settled on, now you can obviously do any yarn you like, but the yarn I chose for it was from Lion Brand's LB collection, their superwash merino.
Yes.
I adore that yarn. It's honestly, I feel, affordable as far as like merino yarns go as well, because I haven't bought it in a while, but unless the price may have changed. But last I remember, it worked out to about $12 Canadian for one skein, which is enough to do the hat.
Right.
And it's like,
that's good.
Yeah, I think so. Like I can't think of another yarn off the top of my head where you can make it in merino, like a whole hat for $12 in merino.
Right.
So that was a brilliant solution to me. Just finding that was perfect. And he wanted just the classic hat. So I didn't want the bulk on the top, so I have found a way to decrease a little bit of the bulk for gathering. And it's basically a rectangle. You just have to do some slip stitches every 4 rows and basic seaming. Just
so you kind of seam as you go then, basically.
I seam at the end, but it's just one seam.
Okay.
So it's a rectangle, when you would wrap around your heads where that would meet kind of thing. You don't have to wrap around your head to do the seaming, but just so you can picture. So that one seam to make it a tube, and then just stitching around the top to gather tight.
Right.
And if you like, you could even do that with the same yarn. You don't have to start a new one. I would just maybe tie a knot at the top after the seam so you don't gather your seam as well.
Right.
When you pull. And I like to use my yarn tails instead of adding extra yarn whenever you can. So I'll leave a long tail at the beginning and like to seam up away from the bottom of the hat towards the top. So then you don't have any tails at the edge that goes around the face to have to weave in. And I think I usually just tie that off and then use the yarn tail from the end to do the gathering, since then it's secured nicely.
Right.
And then with the gathers, it's very easy to tie those little ends in. And so I'm not a fan of seaming myself. That's why most of my designs have minimal seaming, if any. But for this one, to get the ribs, the striping of the ribs going the direction I wanted to, it was a relatively unavoidable thing. You could crochet the seam together. I chose to stitch it with a needle, but those who prefer could use a crochet hook and just join your first and last rows if desired. And it is the same, other than the slip stitches, which I admit I love slip stitches. It's the same stitch throughout. So that, to me, I've made that one. I don't know. I think I've made like 9 of those as gifts. My husband has 2 of them. I have one. My son has one. My dad, my brother, my aunt, my uncle, the kindergarten teacher. Like,
here, take a hat.
Here's a hat. Here's a hat. Here's a hat. It's all the same one. And I did so many like in a row, like over a week or 2, because it just, as much as it's repetitive, it just didn't get boring.
Right.
I just, that little, to me, having that little bit that just keeps your mind in it, for me, is helpful. I find I'm less likely to make a mistake if my mind has to come back every now and then.
Right. And you were saying that was, is that your most popular pattern or one of them, right?
It's one of them. I would say in the top 3, it kind of like floats around a little. That one has always been popular. The one, today's pattern, the sweater, has been popular as well. And the other one that's been kind of rotatingly vying for top spot is that my bandit stroller or lap blanket with the raccoon on it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's been a favorite of people as well.
So tell us about the sweater.
Well, that one, so many of my designs start from family and friends, and either just something they've mentioned that they could use or would like, or something that I get an idea for them. I know it might be jumping ahead a little on you. I know you said you may ask me about niche. That's a tough area for me. My niche is not much of a niche to me. It feels like I make for my family and friends, and anything and everything that they could need, use, love. I know it's not very narrow, but I feel a lot of crocheters are probably like me and some do have one item they love to make, and that's fantastic. But I know a lot also are like me, like, I'll make this for so-and-so, and this for me, and this for so-and-so's kitchen, and it's a bit of this and a bit of that. And I may find myself honing in on a certain area eventually. But right now, I'm loving making for everybody. So that's what I'm doing. And my daughter, well, I just thought I found this yarn that was so cute. And I wasn't sure what it needed to be, but it needed to be something. And playing with it, I was like, this would be a lovely children's sweater.
Right.
And well, my daughter wears sweaters, so it made perfect sense to me. The first 2 I actually ended up being for a friend's daughters.
Ooh.
And I made my daughter her own after. But it was just so much fun. I'm about to make another one for her now that she's grown.
Right.
I just, one of those ones I just couldn't resist. I truly enjoyed the process. I know ribbing is not always everybody's favorite, to edge a garment, especially then if you have to sew it on. And I've always felt that way too. And so that was my approach to this. I started bottom up. You work your ribbing, and then your body is worked right onto that. You have to do small seams at the shoulders, and then you mix it up, a little bit of a different stitch on the sleeves, and the ribbing on the sleeves is worked directly onto the sleeve, kind of join as you go.
Yep.
And I love doing that. To me, that makes ribbing not just bearable, but enjoyable.
Yeah, that's how I
truly see the progress.
That's how I do the ribbing on my socks. Like for the cuff. I do it on the top of the foot of the sock.
Yeah. Well, and then you know it's going to be the right size. I hate
exactly
guessing, and then but you stretch, but if you don't stretch as much, if it's not stretched evenly to sew it on, I hate that. I always feel like I have to add some rows or take some out. So if I just want the ribbing to be a little bit smaller, to have that slightly tapered in look and have that really nice stretch to it, just go down a hook size or two. The numbers, most of the time, the numbers work out that I don't have to be skipping any stitches to work into, and it's I love it.
yeah.
So it was and it was the first, and if you've looked at my patterns, you see still the only, although I have other plans in progress, garment design that I have, and that was actually fairly early on in my designing as well. And so it was a scary step. It was a very big step to be, I mean, it might have even been outside of scarves and hats, like might have been the first actual garment I crocheted, period, thinking about it. I'm not entirely sure, but it may have been. It was a big scary step, but I knew if I didn't like how it turned out, I didn't have to go ahead and write it up and publish it. And I did like it. I loved it. So, but going about making sure that I used things I liked doing and trying to find ways to get around doing the things I didn't like doing, even if they're perfectly valid and I can do them and they work lovely, there can be ways to go around it and make it simpler, or just, even if it's, like I said, even if the other way isn't harder, it's not hard to cut a thread and seam something on. It's just not always, it can be mentally harder, even if the chore isn't harder. So finding ways to go around making it as mentally easy and enjoyable and stress-free as possible for myself in the design process, I feel made it end up bringing the same things to the process for those making it. My testers absolutely adored that pattern. I had lots of feedback, and I think I remember to include in the notes where to work over your ends, or to keep working over all your ends as you go. And that's how there's only two at the end. One at the ribbing on each cuff of the sleeves is the only place, if you work over your ends, that you'll have any ends left to weave in, which is a huge thing for a lot of people.
Music to people's ears. Yeah. Well, you have you thought about making like a an upsized version?
Yes, I've had in my brain quite a while to do, this goes up to size 9, 10, so to do more adult sizes. Basically what's left is to just think about the fit and grading for the sizes. And I'll admit, math has never, I can do basic math, but math has never been a strong or a confident point, and that's mostly what's been keeping me back. But one of these days I'll have the need to get it done will be just a little bit stronger than the fear, and I'll get it done. And the time and the brain space, most of my time now really is bedtime, and my kids are not morning people, so they don't go to bed early, just like me. So by the time I'm getting a chance to pick stuff up, my brain does not have the capacity for that type of work right now. So I will get to it, and someday I'll have some time during the day and it will just seem right and I'll grade it. I've definitely had that plan for a while. I have planned a few other pieces that I feel would work really well with that style. When I pictured how would I take the photos for that adult version when it's done, I had these ideas of other complementary pieces, because I just pictured someone going about their spring, summer, fall. I prefer taking photos outside when it's not snowy. So there's just a relaxed day out. It's such a relaxed fit piece. I mean, you can feel so pulled together in it, but it's just such a nice, relaxed, comfortable fit. I pictured maybe taking off on a bike, maybe stopping at a market, throwing a baguette and some fresh fruit and a market bag, having a picnic. I mean, obviously you can do anything you want in the sweater, but to me, those pictures would just show the spirit of it.
Right.
And so that really gave me ideas for some other pieces to go with it, almost like a collection. So
Yeah.
I will be working on that. There will be adult sizes coming, and I'd like to have a few other kind of complementary pieces to go with it as well. So that is somewhere down the pipeline.
Oh, I love that. I love that idea. Okay, so what would you tell someone who's considering whether or not to take up crochet as a therapeutic craft?
Oh, I don't know. There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot you can learn about yourself, I guess. I mean, like I said, like I started and put it down, had to come back to it just because I was so frustrated, and that might happen, and that's okay.
Right.
Just not to expect it to instantly be something that's going to be this massive miracle, but it's a tool. It's another tool.
Yes, exactly.
To help.
Yeah.
You know, it's not magical, but it can feel magical while you're doing it once you have it at a place where you're comfortable and enjoying it, and it's allow yourself to get there, to get to that place, even if it means you start over every month or two learning, because you'll learn more every time. And when you look back and realize that that's what's been happening and see where you've come, I mean, that's huge too. And that, you know, mistakes are okay. Mistakes are inevitable. You can't learn to do it without making mistakes.
100%. Yeah, 100% agree.
No matter how long. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
You
do it.
After, like later, once the video's processed on YouTube, I'll link to a crochet meditation that I did actually on letting yourself make mistakes and embracing a beginner mindset. And you know, because like we're all learning, right? Like, I mean, you mentioned that you're you know, spreading out into Tunisian and knitting, and you know, like all of us continue to learn all the time, as far as this craft is concerned, because there's just so much to it.
And I've found there's two approaches. Not every. Sometimes you don't get the choice, but often there's two approaches you can take to a mistake, depending on what it is. Sometimes I find a mistake and it's not that far back, and I go, you know what? I'm gonna leave it and I'll just do this here instead. Sometimes I've accidentally worked two together, or I've missed one, and I just work two in another spot, and you'll never know, and I'll have to work to find it later because it doesn't make a difference. So I love that freedom in crochet so far over knitting, because I'm not as familiar to be able to alter in knitting, but I love that in the crochet where sometimes you can make a mistake and just go, I'll fudge it over here and just make it work, and you move on and it's gone and it's done. Or you can choose, depending on and how integral it is, or just how much that one's going to bug you, or sometimes even it's just, I have time, and you know what, I'm getting more use out of the same yarn. I'm still getting, like, what was I going to do when I finish this? Crochet something else. So I'm still just getting more crochet time. Excuse me. It's just on the same piece. And I have to say, in the last, with designing, and then even over the learn to knit process, where, I until you learn how to go back, and it's a very different scale there was a lot of just tearing it out, starting over. And between that and the design process, I have become so much more comfortable with frogging. And so sometimes now I'm just like, there's like 3 hours of work here, but I don't like that. And rip it out. And it doesn't bother me.
100%.
Not, I can't say that every time, but that does happen sometimes. You're just, all right, back we go. And it's just more letting go of the, I guess, that need to just get this done to move on to the next one is something I've learned.
Yeah.
I think that's a great, that recently actually has been therapeutic for me. A total accidental way of getting there. But that's, it's definitely that ability to just go, okay, and rip.
There's, oh gosh, I can't remember who it's supposed to be now. Darn it. But there's this myth or old wives' tale or something about this group of people who do yarn crafts, and I can't remember who they are, but it's sort of said that they deliberately put mistakes, or maybe it's needlework, they deliberately put mistakes into their work because perfection is something that's only that only exists for God. So all of their work has to be perfectly imperfect. And I love that concept of just not just accepting mistakes, but deliberately making an error and accepting it as just something that's supposed to be part of that project.
Yeah, we are human. They'll have
it. Exactly. Okay, so that is all the questions I have for you. I know that there's been several people popping in to join us and listening. I don't know if anybody has any questions for either me or Meggie. If you do, go ahead and make them now, or just say hello. And please do share your biggest takeaway from this video in the comments. While you are typing up your questions or thinking up your questions, just to remind you that all of the links to things that we've been discussing today are in the description box on YouTube. And what I'm doing is, rather than spamming comments on Facebook with lots and lots of links, I'm going to put all of them in a blog post, I think. And then I will put the blog post in the Relax and Hook event on Facebook. And I did put in comments just two links. One is to these are just in the Facebook comments, by the way. So one is to the Relax and Hook event page on Facebook, and the other is how to sign up for my email newsletter, because I am emailing everybody first thing in the morning what the free pattern is for that day. So those two links are in there, but all the other links I'll put together a blog post and share it in the Facebook event. So there are links about a video I did and a post I wrote about my top 5 benefits of crochet. I've already talked about that. And if you think you would like to learn to crochet or brush up on the basics in a supportive, stress-free environment, then there's a link for you to book a call with me to see if I can help you learn. So that's it. Oh, we have a comment. Yay. Oh, it's Stacey. Hi, Stacey. So Stacey is a knitter and a crocheter, and I think she predominantly is a knitter. Yes, fellow creator here on YouTube. So I'm so happy you joined us. It's so nice to see you. So she's got here, this was such a wonderful chat between you two. I love Megan's perspective on mistakes. Me too. Thank you for doing this. Yeah, no, it was lovely. It was lovely. Okay, so anything else that you have, Meggie? Anything else you want to throw in there? Go.
Yes, just for people to be encouraged that even if you're struggling, I know I've heard so many people in various Facebook groups just for one example, people that say they struggle with reading the written patterns or
Yes.
things like that, to just try, I don't want to say stick with it, but keep coming. You can give it a break, keep coming back to it. Try it again. Try a different one. Try different people's tutorials, different approaches, because you'll probably surprise yourself, and you'll find eventually a way that will work for you. And then not only how good that will feel to know you got there and you can do it, but especially for like that particular example, how much will open up to you and how much more will be possible, and how prepared, like I said, again, with that example, the pattern reading, you will feel and have to have that basis to keep building on. But the same thing, whether it's the beginning stitches, like, oh my gosh, learning to single crochet in that starting chain at the beginning, where you're like, what is this? Where do I put my hook? I've been teaching my son, who's 7 now, to crochet, and he's very interested for a little while and makes some great progress. And then it's just a lot, and it breaks. Take a break for a while, and he'll ask me again like months later.
Right.
And somehow he'll have retained enough of that the same concept the next time is easier.
Yes.
And we add a little bit, and then the same thing. And as an aside, that is that left-handed son. Well, remember, I am right-handed, so we have some fun. We have a little fun trying to figure that one out. But we've been working. It works. So I guess just, no one crochet. You can do it with people for support, but you can do it on your own in private, where no one knows what you're doing, what it looks like. No one's watching you. So just take it on. The worst that happens is you see what you've done, and you can take it out and hide it from yourself if you want to, because it's gone.
Right? You can throw it away.
Again.
Right? You can throw, like, just put it in the garbage if it's really upsetting you. Like, just cut the cord. Get,
I have done that, where I've started something and I'm like, this is just too much. Like, especially like a swatch has gone horribly wrong.
Right.
It's like, and gone.
Right? Not even frogging it.
Absolutely.
Just get it out of my sight.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really important. It was one of the things that I really picked up on in interviewing all the people that I ended up interviewing about 60 people as part of the research for my program. And it was actually really surprising how many people had difficulty with YouTube videos. Because when you're learning, now when you're learning, everybody always says, oh, just pick it up from YouTube. It's not a problem. But there are people who don't process information and don't learn information very well from video. And so, I've tried to sort of pull together sort of written patterns and then translations of them into English. So, this is what it looks like in the pattern. This is what it looks like in a way that, real people would use in sentences. Then still images. I'm hoping to eventually get those lovely line drawings that you mentioned.
I love those. I will Google search for those myself.
Yes, somebody told me about that. They were like, using Google image search is like a godsend. So yeah, like don't give up and really sort of grapple with how you learn information best. Maybe you are a kinesthetic learner. Maybe you are somebody who has to be doing it while they're learning it. So yeah, just find the approach that works for you. And if YouTube isn't that approach, that's okay, right? There's a whole bunch of people out there who are the same way.
And even a different perspective. I know myself, I will look up sometimes on YouTube something for knitting.
Yes.
But I find I'm still hesitant. I'm more likely to look up a written description for crochet something myself. I mean, I haven't had to look up many things recently, but sometimes you have a brain fart moment, or there is truly like there are crochet techniques I have not done myself, and I will need to learn when I get to them. But I find a lot of, not all, but a lot, and there's so much out there on YouTube. It can go on, the video is so long, and I know what part I need, and I don't know how to find it in the big clip, and I find that discouraging. Or I find it and they know what they're doing and they just do it, and I don't get to see the steps I need. I think that's one of the things I like about those line drawings, is it's like broken down very small steps. I don't necessarily, for myself, I don't always necessarily need the motion between them, just what those steps are. And so I don't know if I've even mentioned to you in the past, I do have some YouTube tutorials as well. And I think I have them all embedded in a tutorial section on my site as well, but
awesome.
I'm not sure if I have all of them up there yet. I will be making more, but for myself, when I went about them, I actually planned and practiced and recorded them with no sound, no speaking. So the focus was on the motion, and can I show somebody this without using any words?
Right.
So the action is very specific. I know I've mentioned to you before in the past, but one of my majors in university was drama. So motion, gesture, intention, very big things for me.
Right.
And so I went about it from that perspective till I was happy with it without sound. And then I would sit with it at the computer after. And I don't want to quite use the word narrate, but I can't think of a better one at the moment. The sound after.
Right.
Of just describing what the action is, and then somebody can choose to watch with or without the sound.
Right.
And I know there are people that will not work for, and there are people that it will, because it won't be everybody's thing. But since I had not found YouTube tutorials incredibly helpful myself, when I thought about making some, I thought of, well, what was it that I would have liked to have seen? I know it makes me not fit all the lovely algorithm stuff that YouTube likes. So have 10-minute videos and all of that stuff, but mine are fairly short. But that's because to me it was about what I would have liked to have seen from me. And as I know there's people that will learn that way, and people that will hate it because they do want more of the broader talk about it and the uses, whereas like when I look up, it's a very I'm looking for something precise and concise. And so like everybody, there's something out there for everybody. There's just so much of it that sometimes your work comes in filtering through, finding which one works for you. My piano teacher, I used to teach piano as well, and she was teaching me to teach piano. I used to say, you have to do things, you have to give somebody the same information 3 different ways, because you don't know which one of those is going to work for them, and not just in general, but even for that particular skill. So you try to do the same, say the same thing, 3 different approaches, say it 3 different ways, illustrate it differently. And one of those, or a combination of pieces of all of those, is what's going to help that person. You don't know which one it's going to be. And I think that's very, very true. And if you've tried, 2 different people's videos, or a book and one person's video for a technique or a skill, and you don't have it yet, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means you haven't happened across the one that works for you yet. It's out there.
That's right. Yep. Yep. I agree with you 100%. Okay, well, thank you so much for doing this, and thank you for taking part in Relax and Hook. It's been terrific. I will link to, in that blog post that I mentioned, I will link to Maggie's patterns like the bib especially, you have to see that one. And I will also link to your video tutorials.
Thank you.
Okay, so people can check them out. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
As well.
I will chat with you soon, okay?
All right. I can't wait to read everybody's comments and what they've been learning.